family mode.
Well, good day to everyone, and thank you for taking a little bit of time to spend some time with us today to talk about logic and artificial intelligence. I think we have a pretty interesting webinar today. Certainly, it's kind of a new area for us as we've, like everyone else, have been building AI and UBA into our solutions. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can address the concept of either an attack or just malicious behavior when someone's trying to do something that they shouldn't be doing, and how traditional SIM solutions maybe fall short, and how you can look at things a little bit differently to make sure that you see what's happening on your networks. So that'll be our topic for today. Brief introduction, my name is Derek Melber. I will be your moderator as well as your presenter today. Some other logistics. We do have a team working with me. You won't be able to see them or hear them, but certainly if you ask a question in your GoToWebinar panel throughout the webinar, they will answer your questions in line. So please don't be shy about asking questions as we go through the material. If for some reason you have a question after we are done, please either email me or email the AD Solutions events team, and we will get back to you as soon as possible with any questions that you have. This is being recorded, so you should be receiving a link to the recording within a couple of days after today, so please keep an eye out for your inbox for that. And let's see, I think that's about it for logistics. To give you a better kind of introduction to who I am and talk about some resources that we have available, let's do that. Again, my name is Derek Melber. I am the Chief Technology Evangelist for the AD Solutions team. And really what that means is I get the amazing opportunity to travel the world helping administrators and organizations become more efficient with Active Directory, as well as helping them secure their environments. I am a 17-time MVP, both in Active Directory and group policy. For those of you that might have this book on your desk, I wrote that book. That book was written back in the 2007 time frame, which gives you an idea of a couple of things. One is Microsoft hasn't updated a group policy book since then. So it's been 10 years since Microsoft has written a book on group policy. I actually was contributed to the first one and then wrote this one alone. Also, one of the main features of this book is group policy preferences, which gives you an idea of how long Microsoft really updated group policy was back in that time frame. So this is an excellent resource if you're looking for a resource for group policy to sit on your desk and answer your questions. It certainly is a resource for you. And again, I was an MVP back then, just like I am now. Back then I was a group policy MVP, and now I'm an Active Directory MVP working with ManageEngine. I do have a couple of resources I want to point you to. These resources are free and available off of our website. So if you just come to our landing page, ManageEngine.com, and you hover over support and you go to blogs, you'll see that we blog quite a bit. All of our blogs are kind of mushed together, but if you come in here and let's say you search just on Active Directory, you can weed out the other blogs and get directly to Active Directory. So you see one of our latest blogs is about AI, monitoring for attacks, synchronization, passwords. We really try to write on a variety of different things. So please come out to our website. We blog once to twice a week for the AD team. You can come up here. You can not only search on Active Directory, but maybe you want to search on security or something else. Certainly that is something you can do and get information. I will tell you that the blogs are not by chance. One of the things that we do is we try to keep each blog under 5 minutes. The reason for that is I don't want to waste your time. Your time is extremely valuable. I know what it's like to be on your end as the administrator, and I do not want you to read through information and it not be worth much for you. So what I want to do is I want to give you actionable blogs, and that's what we do in our blogs. So please come once a week, come out, see what's new. and take advantage of that information. Another resource also available off of our main landing page is our security hardening site. So this time, if you hover over products and come down to security hardening for Active Directory, you'll see that we put together a site. This is about 3 years ago that was really talking about security technologies and privileged access in Active Directory. And Microsoft has some technologies called JIT and GIA, which we on the AD Solutions team felt really wasn't that great of a solution for controlling privileged access. So what we did instead is we put together this site and gave you these security areas. So if you come and click on one, we give you guidance on how to secure that particular area. Now, this particular site is being updated, and in the beginning of 2019, instead of having blogs, you're going to have videos that you can walk through, and we're going to reorganize the site so it's a little bit easier to consume. That doesn't say that the information isn't here now. It's just going to be in a little bit easier format for you to consume than going through the blogs. But the information here is invaluable, and please come back and take a look at the site as you go through. Another thing is if you go throughout our site and you see this link to our dummies book, I wrote this dummies book, I think it was just at about this time last year. And the dummies book has been very popular, and it's also something you can take advantage of. So any place on our website, click on the dummies book. You can download the PDF. We encourage you to actually share it with others in your organization. Many of you that are listening on this webinar, as the administrator, you fully understand the importance of privileged access, but maybe others in your organization don't, and you want to help them understand the importance. That's exactly what the book is for you to share with others. For those of you that have a train ride, it's a perfect book size for a train ride. It's small. You can probably get through the whole book in one train ride. So please come take advantage of that. We are obviously at the end of 2018. What a successful year for our world seminars. I believe we went over 35 countries this year. Next year we'll probably be hitting just as many, if not more. The AD seminars have been very successful, primarily for the administrators that attend. We really push education and sharing information with you during our AD seminars. So we will be doing those again in 2019. I'm already working on the schedule. I think I'm starting in February or March, hitting some countries, and I will be going to over 20 countries. We have a couple of teams now that work on these seminars, so please keep an eye out for those. For those of you that come to our user conferences, we're working on our user conferences as well. So we do those in both the U.S. and throughout the world. So please keep an eye out for those, and we will be at trade shows. So 2019 is gearing up. I know you're trying to whittle down in 2018, which is good. I hope you have a good holiday season, but we're kind of in the thick of trying to get 2019 organized, and we have some exciting things for you in 2019. So please keep an eye out for those. Okay, I think that gets us through the logistics and the introductions. Let's move on to our topic. Today we are going to be talking about SIEM solutions, traditional SIEM solutions, where they are awesome, where maybe they fall short, and how we can utilize user behavior analytics to increase our exposure on what we're seeing on the network. So let's first of all talk about why SIEM and UBA is needed. Now, this is a timeline of a breach. Now, this is actually from Microsoft. This was taken from Microsoft. So this is their view of Active Directory. Now, that's important to understand because this is from the organization that builds and supports Active Directory. And it's also giving you insight in what Microsoft understands about Active Directory. Now, again, this is a breach. So everything in this green portion is basically reconnaissance. The attacker is gathering information about the organization they're going to attack. This first line right here is when the first host is compromised. Now, most of the time, this is going to be an endpoint. According to Microsoft, within Active Directory, once an Active Directory node, right, an endpoint like a workstation, is compromised, it takes no more than 48 hours for that attacker to get domain admin credentials. But that's really not what I want to focus on here. What I want to focus on here is once an attacker has domain admin credentials, it takes over 5 months today for organizations to realize that they were breached. Now, this is some bad information. And this, to me, indicates that our current SIEM solutions aren't giving us the information that we need, first of all, to determine that we were breached, and second of all, to notice the behavior inside of the organization once we are breached. Because over 5 months, I'm sure that the behavior of the attacker can be seen. It's just the SIEM solution isn't looking for that. So this is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why we need a better approach to determining what's going on in our network. Now, if we look at a real world example, let's look at Marriott, right? I mean, the Marriott breach. 500 million accounts were affected, right? The initial breach occurred in 2014. The discovery didn't come until 2018 in September, and the determination didn't come until a couple of months later. So this is proof that we aren't investigating the right information. We aren't looking at the information correctly, okay? We're failing to catch the breach. We're failing to detect intrusions and behavior, what's going on throughout the network. So I would like to say that this is a couple of years ago, but this is literally hot off the press. This is weeks of information old. Late November is when they determined what happened for the breach. It's just a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's clear that we don't have control of what we need to control. Now, there is a first step in making sure that we look for the right information. Because one of the things that I want to eliminate, which I can't eliminate, but I want to, is I want to eliminate your false positives. But one of the things that I want you to start thinking about is the attacker, what they need, and what they go after. And I want you to logically think about how you can investigate that. Now, let's focus on what the attackers do. They utilize our networks. That's the only way they can get in, right? I mean, so they're using potentially VPNs. They're potentially using access through email to get into an endpoint. They're getting through our firewalls. They're getting through and potentially manipulating DNS to get through. So they're utilizing network and network resources. And attackers focus on the endpoint for access. Now, I've noticed that over the last 9 months, the industry has really focused on endpoints as, oh my gosh, we need to secure endpoints. Well, I've been talking about securing endpoints for over 10 years. Thank goodness everyone else is catching up, and hopefully you've been worried about your endpoints, but if you haven't, think about it. An external attack, they go after the endpoints to compromise the network. An internal attack, well, that starts at an endpoint. Your endpoints are 90% plus of where attacks stem from. Now, the attackers definitely need privileged access. Without privileged access, they can't do much. They can do some, but they can't do nearly as much as they can with privileged access. So we need to monitor our privileged access configurations. We're going to get to that in just a minute. And then the attackers attack weak security. Primarily what I'm talking about here is unpatched machines. That's right. We need to patch better. I know. If you patch, it may break the machine. I understand that. But we need to be diligent about patching because the attackers often are going after patched or vulnerabilities that should have been patched years ago, but they're not. So we need to secure this. Okay? Now, it's harder to detect insider threats, in my opinion, because the attacker has access. They have an account in Active Directory, and potentially you have privileged that account. You've given that account privileges on the local machine so they can install software, and potentially you've given them privileges throughout Active Directory. So users have access to data. So I can't go in and say, okay, I'm going to monitor this folder because it has critical data in it, and I'm going to see who accesses it. Well, the users have access. What are you going to do? Call the user and say, hey, I noticed that you read this file. They're like, yeah, it's part of my job. You can't look at it this way, which again, in my opinion, is part of the problem about these breaches and the fact that we're not noticing the initial breach and we're not noticing over time that we have been breached. So how does a traditional SIEM approach attacks? Well, what happens is a SIEM sifts through tons of events, right? Voluminous event logs. And they're looking for changes that might attack or that changes that might occur, for example, of groups. So let's just take a for example. If someone goes in to Active Directory, this is a live Active Directory environment here. So let's say that an attacker, inside attacker, outside attacker, doesn't really matter, somehow gets information and that they can modify Active Directory. So they come into the enterprise admins, a privileged group, obviously, and they add someone to the list. So they come in and they add someone to the list. A traditional SIEM solution should be able to notice that that occurred. So you'll notice here that someone was added to the group. Okay, this makes sense. This is what a SIEM does. A SIEM sifts through the events, right? So in this particular case, the event is in the security log on a domain controller, and right now I have 200,000 entries, and the SIEM solution went, found that, said, oh my gosh, there was a change, and alerted the administrator that there was a change. So this is a traditional SIEM solution, right? So we're going to look for group modifications, and groups here can be privileged groups. They can be groups that have access, of course, to GDPR information. It could be HR, it could be finance, whatever it is. We also have SIEM solutions that look for security setting changes. This might be in group policy, for example. So someone hacks into group policy, they make a change. The change then is going to be replicated and it's going to reduce security on numerous machines, therefore whatever. Also, we have solutions that may look for failed logons. So over here I have a client, right? So I'm going to log off my client. And let's say someone knows that Derek is the administrator and they're going to try to log on as Derek. So a SIEM solution can come in here and say, oh gosh, we have failed logons and Derek, due to a bad password, has a failed logon, and we can actually give information regarding this. Okay, so there's some awesome things that SIEMs do. I mean, this is some awesome stuff, because if you don't have a SIEM solution giving you information related to changes that occur in your environment, this one obviously focuses on Active Directory and Azure, but if you don't have a SIEM solution giving you this insight, your only other chance is to sift through your events manually to do this. Now, I don't want to kick PowerShell too hard, but PowerShell can do this. But could you imagine trying to script PowerShell to dig out the information, to give you information in this kind of a format, to give you overall views? No way. If you do it with PowerShell, you're going to end up building a tool. Well, why would you do that, right? That just doesn't make any sense. So when we start looking at these concepts, it's pretty powerful what a SIEM can do. And of course, you can now have thresholds to help reduce the false positives. I don't want to receive an alert every time someone fails to log on. However, if someone fails to log on 5 times in less than 5 minutes, that might be something I want to look at. So your SIEM solution needs to have thresholds that you can set up so that you don't get bombarded with alerts that really don't help you. Now, another thing you can do with a SIEM solution is you can utilize correlation. And what correlation does is correlation allows you to set up a multitude of things, right? So you can say, okay, if I have X failed logons, then I have a successful logon, then someone installs a service, then they connect to a file server. Well, this is obviously the typical behavior of an attack. So I can string behaviors together and look for these things in correlation, which is going to help reduce the false positives and give me a clear look at when I'm under attack, right? SIEM solutions can do that too. In our AD360, our Log360 solution does exactly that. One more step is you can take actions. Now, I'm kind of an old school admin and I have problems with automated tasks taking over my environment. But in some cases, it just makes sense, right? You can now, if you have certain behaviors, you can do things to shut off, right? So for one of the best examples of ransomware. So if you notice that you have a file server that is having a multitude of files ending up with a common ransomware extension, what you can do is shut down that server, right? Shutting down the server will do a couple of things. It will stop the encryption of the files, plus it will hopefully negate the ransomware from spreading to other machines. So this is a traditional SIEM approach, makes sense, obviously very powerful, and it obviously has done a very good job for what it can do. But it falls short. Now, let's talk about AI and UBA. AI is obviously artificial intelligence. UBA is user behavior analytics, which in some discussions is also UBA, UEBA, user and element behavior analysis. Well, I'm going to focus right now on user behavior analysis. So user behavior analysis uses machine learning. And what happens is you create a baseline of activity, okay? And once you have a baseline of activity created, now you can tell the difference between normal activity and what happens abnormally or anomalies, okay? Now, what we have adopted here at ManageEngine is statistical modeling and unsupervised machine learning, okay? So that's the technical way of what we're doing, but basically, in essence, what I described is what we're doing, okay? So UBA focuses on what the user is doing. So all the information is out there in these logs, right? Logons, file activity, lockouts, access in certain ways. So we sift through the logs, right? We look at applications that are launched, logons, authentications, access, and we create a baseline, okay? Once we've created that baseline, now we just look for anomalies, okay? But I need to be honest, and hopefully everyone else is talking to you about AI and UBA is honest too. This technology can't prevent attacks. It can't. The idea is that we can hopefully see when we're under attack and hopefully prevent a breach, hopefully prevent data from leaving our network, but I can't stop attacks. I don't know of any technology that can stop attacks, okay? Again, I joke about it. Take your server, unplug it, bury it 5 foot deep, and now you can potentially stop an attack. But now someone can attack it by trying to dig it up. You cannot stop attacks. What we're trying to do is see things that are happening so that we can prevent the success of the attack and the breach, okay? Now, this is kind of a diagram. Those of you that love diagrams, this is a diagram of what's happening, right? Over on the upper left is our event collection. We're collecting information. We put all the events in a database, and from there, we produce our baseline. Baselines are dynamic. Let me say that again. Baselines are dynamic. We don't go with every bit of information. we have a moving timeline to develop baselines. This is very important, okay? Because what you do not want is a full historical view of a user's behavior. You only want what's happening recently. Now, what's recent? Recent could be a week, recent could be 3 months. Each data point for UBA needs to be customized for that. Now, of course, out of the box, it comes with a default, but you need to make decisions on what's best for you. So as the baseline is being created with historical information, new information is coming through and they're compared to one another. If we see an anomaly, we're going to send it out in an alert, and obviously you're going to be able to see report information. So let me give you an idea of what this might look like. So if I come in here and I show you what the baseline looks like, this is what the baseline looks like for activity volume for a user. Let's go through, let's pick Derek. And right, so since this is dynamic, I need to be able to see things as they are right now, so I can run this and I can see the behavior of Derek. So user activity management for Derek normally occurs between 7 and 8 a.m. and also again between 11 a.m. and midnight. You'll see that this is the behavior, okay? So this is showing you what is happening normally. This is the view of the baseline. Now, if I want to see the difference, then I come up here and I look at unusual behavior, and you'll see here that Derek has unusual behavior, right? And it tells you normally this occurs between 11 and 12, done. But there was a threshold that was exceeded, right? So normally it's 12, we went to 25, boom, I'm going to send you an alert. That's how this diagram fits into the idea of UBA, okay? So this is where we can actually go in, and instead of a threshold that we're setting up in a SIEM solution, we're looking at normal behavior and abnormal behavior. What's the difference? A threshold maybe is 10. I'm going to say if Derek performs more than 10, well, as you saw, normal behavior is more than 10 for certain times of the day. So you're constantly going to get alerts using a SIEM solution with thresholds. But if I dynamically determine that between 11 and 12, Derek normally has 17 administrative actions, then I'm not going to trigger you until after 17 is hit, because that's the normal behavior. So this is where SIEM solutions combined with UBA become more dynamic and give you better information. So the UBA approach is to create baselines and look for anomalies. At this stage, the traditional UBA is looking at logon times, looking at logon failures, so success and failure. We're looking at host access, because in reality, your users typically use a handful of computers. If I have a user using a different computer, I want to be notified of that. That is abnormal behavior. It may not be an attack, but then again, it might. Remote access, okay? Let's be honest, your users are pretty traditional. You have users that constantly use the computer at work and at home or traveling. The other users don't. So you want to know when someone tries to connect remotely. Resource access. We want to know when users access resources above the normal thresholds, okay? And then I want real-time events telling me when these things change, when the baselines are exceeded. That's how UBA works. Now, let's dive into the details. Let's talk a little bit about how UBA is doing this. Let's focus first on logons. So let's look at logon times, okay? So I'm going to jump into UBA and show you how you can utilize this with logons, okay? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go into UBA and look at the normal logons. So normal behavior, usual activity time for the user, okay? So if I come in here and I look at a variety of different users. So I'm going to pick all of these users And then I'm going to come here and say, I want to know the logon times, and I'm going to look at this information. So right here, 80 audit of the users I picked. Generally, they start at 8 p.m. and they end at 12. Okay? So 80 audit has logon times that are in this realm. Okay? Now, if I come in over here, let's see if I can get this to work. I actually didn't test this, so hopefully this gives me the ability to log on. So now, right, I'm logging on, and notice this is the first log on, right? Okay, pretty cool. So this is going to give us a couple of things. So over here now, I have the usual logon time may or may not change, right? So I'm going to come over here, look at my active users. And again, this is dynamic, so this is why I have to perform these actions, is I need to get the updated information with regard to the users. Still says 8 to 12. Now, let's look at unusual activity time. First time access, oh my gosh, I just noticed that 80 audit logged on to Windows 7 for the first time. You noticed that. You saw me do that. This is abnormal activity. Now, some of you might have 10,000 users. For you to be able to see when one user walks over to another machine and logs on, that's going to be nearly impossible. This is going to give you that insight. Okay? Now, unusual logon activity time, this is actually not, oh, that's by the host. So this is now giving me information about unusual logon activity time. Again, UBA isn't flagging this, and it may be because I didn't have enough logons. Who knows? Each component of UBA is based on certain criteria, and they're not always consistent across UBA. That's never going to be that way, because you want certain triggers to be triggered based on certain behaviors, okay? And you do not want too many false positives. So this is a way that you can look at the unusual activity time. So this tells you, hey, Derek, right, on October 10th had some unusual activity outside of the normal time that Derek normally logs on, and I can then look at the details of what occurred. So this gives you insight into that. The details are imperative. The details help the administrator determine if it's correct or not. Now, we can also look at this from a host access, unusual hosts accessed and first time accessed. So let's go back and look at that. So if I jump back in and look at the host portion, right, I can look at usual activity based on the host. So now I come in, and instead of looking at the user, I'm actually looking at my computers, and now I can look at activities that UBA has determined. So now again, I'm looking at kind of a timeline of when things normally happen. So you'll see here logon failures normally occur between 3 and 4 a.m. So this is giving me where things normally occur. So I have both pillars. I have between 3 and 4, and I have between 11 and 12. So what can now happen is my logon activity based on the host, right? Unusual volume of logon failures that are occurring on a host. So now I can come in here and say, oh gosh, between 12 and 1, normally I have this, but I'm having X number of logon failures that are occurring. I can also look at logon activity, which would be your successes, during certain time frames, okay? First time remote access, I told you remote access. So if someone remotely connects, I can flag that. This is the first time. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a view that a traditional SIEM can't show me. Because what I need is a baseline of information to look at anomalies. SIEMs don't do baselines. SIEMs don't use anything other than what the event is right now. Because I have a baseline of normal activity, the normal activity gives me the option to view what I want to view. Okay? So this is really the difference between UBA and just traditional SIEM. So we can also look at hosts logon times, normal logon, and the usual volume, which I just showed you. Okay, so this is a view of our of UBA giving us insight into this detailed information. Now we can also do it with user management. Again, this is an event that occurs on your domain controllers in Active Directory, and we can determine what's happening. We can look at abnormal volume of user management. Now, that's just a screen capture. Let's look at the live information. So here, I don't have a report for normal behavior, but what I have is unusual behavior, which is going to tell me also what the baseline is. So down here, Derek has 13 user activities that were done where the threshold is 13, and these are all the actions that occurred. Okay. So now you can see the details of what the administrator performed. This is not a threshold. This is utilizing the UBA baseline. Okay. So because I went in and I modified this information, exceeding my normal, right, which that's what this is indicating, I can now see the details of what occurred. Okay. So again, all we're doing is taking the information that's in the security log, and we are making determinations of what normal behavior is. Based on the normal behavior, now we just look for things that go beyond that over a certain time frame. So now let's kind of recap. It's important that these baselines aren't forever, because over time they're going to change. Your behavior from month to month may even change, and you know that as an administrator. We have end of year, which is going to be slower normally than during the heavy business times. But then again, someone in finance at the end of the year are trying to do more information for end of year reconciliation. Or someone, let's say in HR, you're not hiring as many people, so they're not going to have as much activity. See the differences? So that's why this UBA baseline is so valuable for us. Now, what about resource access? Again, this resource access is very important. I was actually working on some blogs with some of my writers, and we fleshed out some really cool concepts about resource access. And the idea is that we want to be able to look at when things occur. So we just wrote a blog on when someone is leaving the organization. Now, we came up with two different scenarios. Scenario one, right? So let's go jump in and let's look at some data. So let's say that I have a user that has access to some corporate data, okay? Now, I don't have anything in there. Let's look at here. So these are the files that someone has access to. On a normal day in and day out, the user might access 10 of these files. But the user's leaving the organization. So what they do is in one swoop, they come in and they access all 100 files. Not 10, 100 files. Well, that's 10 times the amount. If the user has access to the files, which they do, how in the world is a traditional SIEM solution going to report that? I mean, what am I going to do? Hey, someone accessed 100 files. Well, how do I know if that's normal or not? But now, if I have a baseline of access, right? So if I have a baseline of access for a user, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say that the user, Derek, has a normal access of XYZ for file access, right? So now I run this and I can clearly see that file activity for the user is here, right? So if the user goes in and accesses more than what is logically for normal, then I'm going to have unusual file access for my user. And then I can determine, oh gosh, the user accessed more than normal. And I can actually look at the details of what they accessed and how they accessed it. Okay? This borders on DLP. But the idea is that I want to have the norm as my baseline, which is what UBA determines. Then I can look at changes from that, or anomalies. It's really that simple. So as you can see, with everything that we have included, we now give you insight into what's occurring. And all these concepts can be alerts, right? Everything that I'm showing you is alerted. So look at all my UBA, right? My user behavior analytics, I can alert you. So I'm not only going to alert you in the alerts, I'm going to alert you in the dashboard, showing you when things are occurring. I can also, for any alert, okay, let me show you this. This is pretty cool. I'm going to show you how to configure these alerts, right? So for any of my alerts, right, here are my UBA alerts right here based on a user. I can come in here and I can also email you or send you SMS notifications. It's up to you how you want to be alerted. You get to customize all of the alerts, determining what you want to look for and how you want to be notified. I can always send it to the dashboard, but you get to determine if it's going to be sent into the your inbox or text to you. Another great thing is this dashboard is now more customizable, so you can actually have UBA panels, you can have different components, so you can see what you want to see inside of your dashboard. That's a brand new feature in AD Audit Plus. So in this short time together, we've ran through a tremendous amount of information talking about normal behavior, how SIMs look at changes, where they fall short, and where UBA comes in. And I walked through some perfect examples of how UBA can help you. Now, what I suggest at this point, now I know we're at the beginning of December, and I know administrators have a little bit of time, so here's a challenge for you. And I'm going to have two parts of the challenge. Here's part one of the challenge. I want you to come to our main landing page, and I want you to start a timer. And I want you to go to products after you start the timer, AD Audit, and I want you to download, install, configure an alert in AD Audit, maybe not for UBA, I'll tell you why in a minute, for the change of a group, right, a privileged group, and then I want you to trigger that change and I want you to receive the notification. That's going to take you less than 30 minutes, okay? That's step one, that's the challenge. Step two, I want you to report back for me how long it took you to get a change report for a group, from a download, install, configure, and get an alert for the change of a group. I want you to tell me that because I keep telling people less than 30 minutes. That's what it took for me the first time, and I want you to investigate that, okay? So please go investigate this. You'll notice here that we have a variety of different solutions from AD all the way through. AD Audit Plus includes UBA. Now, the reason I don't want you to do UBA is because you have to create the baseline. There has to be XYZ activity. So it's going to take you more than 30 minutes. But it's going to take you a day to 2 days, if you're in Active Directory quite a bit, to create these different triggers for UBA. So that's action item number one. Action item number two, email me with your questions. That's my email address. I have a little downtime, not traveling. I want you to send me your difficult problems, AD problems, group policy problems, security problems. If you're going to be going through an audit in early 2019, send me issues about how you don't know how to generate reports. I want to help you, okay? Send me your difficult problems. I want to try to help you solve them as I'm going through creating my security hardening videos, okay? If you have any other questions, email me, email the AD Solutions event team. I want to thank you for your time. I really hope this information was valuable to you. I want to wish you the best of the holiday season. I hope you get some time off. I hope you get to see family. I hope you get to maybe travel. For me, I'm not going to travel because I travel for the rest of the year. And if I don't talk to you before 2018 is over, have a very safe and wonderful end of your year, and I hope to see you in 2019. I want to thank my colleagues for helping me with the Q&A, and for myself and the rest of the AD Solutions team, thank you for your time. Happy holidays, and have a great end of your 2018.